fall off. Now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out. Talking just to feel heard, I never listen, although they say it's strictly. Welcome to Quick Hits. I'm your host, Shannon Smith, aka Podcast Smitty. If you're new to the show, what's good? I'm Shannon. I'm a fan of sport, and Quick Hits is dropping weekly to discuss headlines in the field of sports. So if that's what you like, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And also, too, get into those comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about your favorite sports. I want to see what's going on up here with some of the viewers here. I'm open to talk about anything and everything when it regards to sports. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel and go through the plethora of podcasts that we have for TV and movies, sports, and sports entertainment. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm glad you asked. We've got conference finals in the NBA and in the NHL. And one of my favorite times of year is starting. The summer is coming into effect, so that means the WNBA is beginning. We had a stacked weekend of WNBA games. We had some great performances. We had some matchups that we need to talk about. So we're going to discuss that on this very show right here for your Tuesday afternoon. So without further ado, let's start the show. And we'll go ahead and start with the NBA as we have ourselves a conference final set in stone. As those New York Knickerbockers and those Indiana Pacers, an old school matchup in the Eastern Conference, is going to be taken off. And we also have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the 68-win Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference. Two very big matchups. Of course, the winners of these go on to face each other in the NBA Finals. But as I'm putting this together, as I was putting the show together, I had some thoughts here on what we saw in the second round, the semifinals, if you will, of the East and Western Conference. I came up with some thoughts. Now, in regards to the Pacers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have continued their season, putting down some teams that many people thought that they should have lost to. Looking at the Indiana Pacers, how they beat up on the Milwaukee Bucks, the Giannis Antetokounmpo Milwaukee Bucks, because that's basically what it was. The absence of Dame Dollar, not being able to give the help that Milwaukee needed, and Indiana pretty much cruising 4-1. As Indiana went on to face the Cleveland Cavaliers after the Cavaliers had many injuries happen to their star players, Indiana was able to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Made me think. And now Minnesota as well, too, was Minnesota, who was the sixth seed. They beat up on a Los Angeles Lakers squad who was lacking in size. Their defense was a question mark. Minnesota beat them in 5 games. And Minnesota goes up against the Steph Curry-less Golden State Warriors and was able to decisively beat the squad. So looking at Minnesota and looking at Indiana, I know that we're bent and we're talking about Ann Edwards, collecting the Infinity Stones, beating Luka Doncic, beating LeBron James, beating Steph Curry. He's like Thanos out there beating some of the best players in the NBA in their respective teams. But looking at all those parameters, then Tyrese Halliburton on the Revenge World Tour, after they called him the most overrated player. The guys that he plays against night in and night out called him overrated. Tyrese Halliburton is having a monster playoffs, and it has paid dividends for the Indiana Pacers, getting them back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But looking at Minnesota and Indiana, is it fair to call them giant killers? They pretty much had what many would say an easy road would be in the playoffs. Now, injuries happen, and I'm not happy that injuries have happened because I'm one of those type of people. I shall not, have not, and will not celebrate an injury of any player, no matter if I like them or don't. I would never do that on any player. So seeing that that's happened and injuries are part of the game and that is something that happens, but this might be something that may come up when Indiana plays the New York Knicks, when Minnesota plays OKC, with these squads having different roads than Indiana and Minnesota. This may come up in this conference finals. And speaking of the New York Knicks, this is the first conference championship the New York Knicks have played in 25 years. The last conference championship they played in, they won. And I was in middle school, the 1999-2000 season. I was in middle school, 8th grade. Woodward Middle School, what's good? Young Smith was in middle school watching this squad. Seeing the old school matchups that the New York Knicks have had with the Detroit Pistons, with the Boston Celtics, it's refreshing to see that hidden nostalgia is great for people like Jason Colenso, host of 3 from Deep, 3 times a week. Catch him Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, talking the NBA. My man Sean Lucas, the host of the It Stinks podcast on Thursday, talking your TV and movies, and Wrestling of Destiny on Saturdays at 10 a.m., talking your wrestling. The Professor, that's my guy. You know, we're around the same age, and we remember when the New York Knicks were a formidable opponent. Also, to the Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons. We remember those teams. So the throwback aspect, the nostalgia aspect has been amazing. The history amongst these teams. The New York Knicks going up against Indiana. Spike Lee, Reggie Miller. Y'all saw that 30 for 30 is winning time. Y'all saw that. That's going to be interesting in this playoffs as these guys are taking each other on. And I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to it. And last but not least, on my thoughts on these NBA finals. On these NBA playoffs, I'm sorry. Well, I'm foreshadowing here. Sorry about that. But my last thought that I have for the NBA here is that the team we haven't talked about, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the 68-win Oklahoma City Thunder, who had the best record in the NBA, 68-14. Very dominant squad. They went 7 games with the Denver Nuggets. Of course, I didn't see OKC sweeping the Nuggets. I didn't see that. I don't think anybody did. When you have the reigning MVP on your squad in Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon playing great basketball, Jamal Murray playing great basketball. Denver was a squad that caught on. They had their woes in the middle of the season, and then they caught on later. Nikola Jokic doing Jokic things, pushing the number 1 team in the NBA to the brink. But looking at Denver, even though Denver's not playing in the Western Conference Finals, Denver is that squad that'll beat you up. They're like, if I could think of a boxer, I'm going to go throwback on you. The Denver Nuggets remind me of Jack Dempsey. And Jack Dempsey was one of the most devastating heavyweights in the Roaring 20s. Jack Dempsey shares a birthday with your Quick Hits host, Podcast Smitty, over 100 years ago. But Jack Dempsey was one of those guys, when he fought you, you felt it. You might have beat Jack Dempsey. You may have. And if you beat him, you felt it the next day. Denver went 7 games with the Los Angeles Clippers. 7 games with SGA and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And almost put them away. That last game, that game 7, Denver ran out of gas. It is what it is. But Denver going 7 games. They were close to doing it. They were a game away from being in that Western Conference Finals. Is that alarming? With OKC going 7 games with the Denver Nuggets. Is that alarming? Is that something that we have to figure out with OKC? How does that look against a Minnesota Timberwolves squad that's very, very hungry with Ant-Man, ready to go to the finals and ready to show himself why he is the face of the league. These NBA playoffs have been heating up. Make sure you're watching Three from Deep. Make sure you're watching Quick Hits. That's your first quick hit for this episode. And now we go from the hardwood to center ice as the NHL has their conference finals ready to go. We have it set. In the Western Conference, we have the defending Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers up against the Dallas Stars. And on the east side, we have the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers against the home team, my home team, the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, before we get into talking about the winners and the losers of these second round games that we had in the NHL, we just found out the news that Alexander Ovechkin said year 20 was not it. He's coming back for year 21 with the Washington Capitals, the squad that the Carolina Hurricanes beat out for a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. He's coming back for year 21, the grade 8, breaking Wayne Gretzky's record of career goals. Says he's coming back for more with the squad that he's played with all his career in the NHL. But before we get into talking about the conference finals, let's go ahead and give a well-deserved round of applause to Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele playing in the elimination game against the Dallas Stars with his squad, the Winnipeg Jets, after finding out that his father tragically passed away. Very, very tough pill to swallow. I'm very thankful to have my mother and my father still here living with me in the world. It's a very, very sad state of affairs when you lose a parent. I wouldn't know. It's not happened to me. But I have empathy and sympathy for Mark Scheifele. So prayers for you and your family, sir. Thank you for what you've done in the NHL, but take time to heal with your family. And speaking of the Winnipeg Jets, they unfortunately lost to the Dallas Stars in the second round of the Western Conference. Looking at this here, this is a significant loss for the Winnipeg Jets because the Winnipeg Jets were the darling of the league this year, having the best win-loss record in the NHL and winning the President's Trophy because of their win-loss record being noted as the best team in the NHL record-wise. But a nugget here in history for the NHL, the Chicago Blackhawks, who won the President's Cup in the 2012-2013 season, went on to win Lord Stanley's Cup, the cup that really matters. And since that season, no President's Trophy winner has made it past the conference championship on any side, the east or the west side. None of them has done it since then. The Winnipeg Jets, of course, who were the President's Trophy winner and lost to the Dallas Stars in this past series, were the 10th squad out of 12 to not make it to the conference championship after winning the President's Trophy this year. The way I see it and the way I look at it, that's a very disappointing year. Having the best win-loss record in the regular season and being the best team in the playoffs are two very different things. The regular season's over and done with. Considering that fact, I know that you have a bullseye on your back being looked at by some of these teams in your conference. But at the end of the day, you got to show up considering the fact you're the best team in the NHL, and that didn't happen. The Winnipeg Jets, who went 7 games with the St. Louis Blues, who were a very hot team coming into the playoffs, a squad that it looked like they should have beat on paper. Did not happen. They went 7 games with them. They ended up winning. They needed an overtime to do it, and that spelled despair for me. And then the Dallas Stars squad, who had an up-and-coming team once again adding on the player Nico Rantanen, adding on the great player Nico Rantanen to their squad. Took an early lead, and they didn't look back as the Dallas Stars ended up beating them. It was very tough to see after Connor Hellebuyck was looked at as a player who could win the Hart Trophy this year, who could have won the Hart Trophy this year. I don't think he's going to do it, especially after what happened in the playoffs. If the Hart Trophy is looked at in the playoffs, which, it could be, it could not be. But for most of the season, Winnipeg has exceeded expectations with a new coach, and they were not able to do it in the playoffs. That's the way the ball bounces or the puck scoots across the ice. Who knows what you call it? But I got to say it was a very disappointing year. And speaking of disappointments, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who went 7 games with the defending champion Florida Panthers, ended up coming up short on Sunday, losing 6-1. It was a rout, to say the least. But the Toronto Maple Leafs have not won a Stanley Cup since 1967, 58 years in the making for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, of course, being a fan of sport that I am, I had to look at the other 3 American sports, the 3 pro sports that are set apart from the NHL. I had to look at them and their long droughts. So looking at the longest drought after the Toronto Maple Leafs is the Sacramento Kings. Their last championship was in the 1950-1951 season, and they were not even the Sacramento Kings yet. They were the Rochester Royals. Man, what a travel they took from Rochester to Kansas City. Shout out to Reggie Theus, who played with the Kansas City Kings. And now the Sacramento Kings still stand, not winning a championship since the 1950-51 season. That's 74 years. But after them is the Cleveland Guardians of Major League Baseball, who have not won a World Series since 1948. I know we made jokes about the Chicago Cubs, who went 100-plus years. It was 108, I believe. Chris DeLuca, let me know if I'm wrong. But they went 108 seasons without winning a World Series. They finally snapped the streak, and now it belongs to the Cleveland Guardians, who haven't won since 1948. And behind them is the Arizona Cardinals, who have not won a pro football championship since 1947. Tough times here. The Toronto Maple Leafs got to look at these teams and say, hey, it may not be so bad. But yet and still, in the manner that they lost on Sunday, very, very tough going to a Game 7 and taking a loss. But let's look at this Western Conference. This Western Conference is going to be very, very interesting. This Western Conference Finals and this Eastern Conference Finals. Very interesting because this was last year's Western Conference Championship as the Edmonton Oilers beat the Dallas Stars 4-2. Now, the Dallas Stars did some retooling. We talked about Mikko Rantanen beforehand. Mikko Rantanen got a pretty penny spin on him after being acquired from my Carolina Hurricanes, after he only played 13 games with the Canes after being traded from the Colorado Avalanche. Y'all saw my quick hit. I know you have. But Mikko Rantanen coming to the Dallas Stars, that was one of the reasons why he was bought on this team, because the Dallas Stars came up short to the Edmonton Oilers last year. They had to get past the Western Conference Finals, and Mikko Rantanen could be that guy to do it. He was bought there to do it. Let's see if it happens. Get the Stars over the hump. The Stars are a good squad before he came, but they just might be better with him. And the Edmonton Oilers, they've had time to rest after coming to a close win here with the Los Angeles Kings in the first round, having a close series with the Kings, then beating the defensive-minded Vegas Golden Knights. They've had time to rest, and they needed it. Leon Draisaitl having a little bit of injury problems. Same with Connor McDavid, who's had an injury-riddled season this year, but still was able to will himself to 100 points in a season. But now he's getting healthy, and he's becoming what he was before he was injured, which was the best NHL player in the world. Going with his Edmonton Oilers. And the Edmonton Oilers looking to get back to where they were when they came just one game away from capturing Lord Stanley's Cup. Wanting to get a chance at that and bring Canada a Stanley Cup for the first time in over 30 years. And also getting the Edmonton Oilers back into the championship conversation like they were in the 80s when a man named Wayne Gretzky was the great one during that time. And looking at the east side, the Florida Panthers. The state of Florida has been killing it in the NHL in the past 5 years. 5 total conference championships have came to the state of Florida. And the Florida Panthers were the last 2 champions in the Eastern Conference. And the Tampa Bay Lightning were the champions before them 3 times. So they have an opportunity to three-peat as the Eastern Conference champions. And also, too, the Carolina Hurricanes. It's been 19 seasons since my home team has hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup. With the way the Canes have played this year, overcoming the Mikko Rantanen deal that made a lot of people frown at why they done what they done. Getting to an Eastern Conference championship for the first time in a long time. Rod Brindamore, who was a player on this Carolina Hurricane squad that won it in 05-06, held that cup over his head as a player. Could he hold that cup over his head as a head coach for the Carolina Hurricanes? This season has been great for the NHL. Exponential growth for the NHL. Let's see how it goes. Quick hit number 2. There you have it. Yeah, y'all noticed the fit change already, so you know what it is. We're here to talk about the WNBA, started on the 16th of May on Friday. So looking forward to this season. This is going to be a very important season for the WNBA because of the collective bargaining agreement. Have to get it done by Halloween of this year, or there could be a possible strike for the WNBA. This is going to be important. This is going to be a big year, but I think it's going to be a great year as we began with a slate of games for the weekend. Friday, we began it with a 37-point debut from Kelsey Plum as she's with her new home, the LA Sparks, as they get an opening victory against the Golden State Valkyries. And Nafisa Collier getting 34 points as the Lynx secure a victory against the Dallas Wings. Of course, you know, the Dallas Wings drafting Paige Becker, number 1 in the WNBA draft. She got 10 points in this outing here. And then we shifted to Alicia Gray. Her 25, 8, and 7 performance just wasn't enough as the Atlanta Dream lose a tight one to the Washington Mystics. That was your Friday games. We go into Saturday. That Saturday, the New York Liberty raising their championship banner from last year, breaking the streak of not winning WNBA championships after going to 3 WNBA championships and not winning them. They get it right on the 4th as they win it in 2024. They raise that banner and get an early win against the Las Vegas Aces. And Satou Sabale with 27-6 in her very first game, her debut with her new squad, the Phoenix Mercury, as they beat the Seattle Storm. And of course, the headlining game for Saturday, the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky, was a chippy game. Caitlin Clark getting a 3rd career triple-double. She's only played 2 years in the league. 3 triple-doubles, 27, 10, and 10. And that overshadowed Angel Reese's 12 and 17 game as the Fever went big against the Chicago Sky. And then, of course, Sunday fanned the flames a little bit as the Washington Mystics improved to 2-0 after Brittany Sykes getting 27 points, spoiling Tina Charles and the Connecticut Sun's home opener. And then Minnesota, of course, getting the win, prevailing against the LA Sparks later on in the day. And these upcoming games that we have this week, we have a pretty full slate. for the WNBA. You can catch some of these games. Amazon Prime's got a few. The ION Network, they have a few. Also, too, there's going to be some games on CBS for this weekend. So the WNBA getting on TV a little bit. The NBA TV also, too, has the WNBA games. So if you got NBA TV, go ahead and get into these games. The Dallas Wings and the Seattle Storm will be playing on Monday. And also, too, Vegas will be playing at Connecticut, and Atlanta will be playing at Indiana on Tuesday. Dallas will be playing at Minnesota, Washington at Golden State, and LA at Phoenix, the late game on Wednesday, and then Indiana at Atlanta, and New York at Chicago on Thursday. But, of course, let's talk about this here foul that happened on Saturday's game as the Fever and the Sky were playing on Saturday. And, of course, it was Caitlin Clark reaching for the ball and jerking down Angel Reese. Of course, we know the constant bickering back and forth. They've been bickering since college. Of course, we know how it began. If you've been watching women's basketball, you've been watching women's college basketball, you've been watching the WNBA. Both these players have been chirping at each other, and the WNBA doing what us wrestling fans like to do and create a rivalry. And this is definitely what it is, because it is a rivalry. Both of these players were drafted in the same draft. Of course, rookies last year. Caitlin Clark getting a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of people thinking that Angel Reese might be jealous of what Caitlin Clark's got going on. You know, RG3 tweeted about it, talking about that Angel Reese has hatred in her eyes and is a little jealous, a little more jealous than what she is, than what she proves to be when it comes down to Caitlin Clark. Of course, the Caitlin Clark effect is real in the WNBA. One of the reasons why there's been a lot of fanfare in the WNBA. We get it. There have been great players before Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, but it seemed like a lot of people didn't care about some of those players. But now the WNBA is getting the notoriety, getting on TV a lot, being the center of the news. So, of course, the WNBA was smart by putting this game on Saturday as the featured game. They were smart to have these two go at each other early. Both are in the starting lineups for their respective teams. Yes. But also, too, they talked to both of these players. Caitlin Clark explained why she did what she did, saying that she's played basketball for a long time. She was going for the ball. It was a basketball play. Sometimes you got to get that hard foul in there. And it wasn't too much of a hard foul, to be honest with you. To me, I've seen worse fouls as a fan. I'm pretty sure both of these players have seen worse fouls or have worse fouls committed. Angel Reese said it was a basketball play and she avoided the question. So that got a lot of people talking. That got a lot of people chirping. All I can say as a fan of sport is this. Let them girls play basketball. It was a foul. Let's move on from it, everybody. At the end of the day, it was a foul. Game's over. You win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day. Pops on Friday said it best. Rest in peace, John Witherspoon. It was a basketball play. Leave it at that. Both of these teams have a lot of work to do. It's early in the season, very early in the season, and both of these players have a lot more playing and a lot more games and a lot more of their careers to go. So, WNBA, we know what you're doing. You're getting paid off this rivalry, and that's okay. That's fine, because it's what you need is competition. No more of this buddy-buddy stuff right here. This is a chippy game, and these are the games that you want to see as a fan. These are the type of games that get fans engaged into your product. The WNBA looks like they're getting it right. Cash in on this rivalry. Make these games competitive. Looking forward to the season. Let's get it. Guys, that's our show. We are done with your Tuesday episode of Quick Hits. I may put up one on Friday. There's sports all over the place. Make sure that you're tuning in to the UFL. Make sure you tune in to the Indy 500. The horse racing was going on at that time. Make sure you're watching plenty of sports. And while you're at it, make sure you're watching Boom Broadcasting. See my man Chris DeLuca with the Dugout Debrief. See my man Carson Williams. See my man Aaron Schneider with Hoops and Helmets. See my man Michael Davis for the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast and Out of Pocket. My man Sean Lucas for Instincts TV and Movie Podcast and for Wrestling of Destiny. My man Jace Colenso, 3 from Deep, 3 times a week. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, you're in my head. You're not in my head, but you're in my heart. So, of course, keep watching it. Keeping it locked here on Boom Broadcasting. Keep watching Quick Hits. There's plenty more sport to cover. Thank you for your time. But now it is my time. So, see you sometime this week, maybe next week. Keep it locked here on Boom Broadcasting. I'm Shannon Smith, and this is Quick Hits. Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly